Hey everybody, this is Maya Zahira with Psychic Protection Sanctuary. I'm here in Tucson, Arizona, and we are now starting our Facebook Live for our free Facebook group. Our free group is called Psychic Protection Sanctuary with Maya Zahira. And so as we're waiting for everybody to join, I'm going to just do some shout outs, make announcements, and then we'll get into our lesson. But I want to let you know what our topic is today. Our topic is the real truth about Doreen Virtue. The real truth about Doreen Virtue. Now, some of you may know she used to be a very popular New Age author, and some things happened to her. And so there was a big controversy. There still is. This was back from 2017 when all of this happened, and it is still creating ripples in the metaphysical spiritual community. And this is actually part 2. I did a video a couple of years ago about Doreen Virtue, but I held back on some of my more controversial opinions, and so I'm gonna share those with you today. So hang on while we get into this. As usual, as you're joining, go ahead and say hi and where you're joining from. And at this point, while the Facebook people are still joining, I wanted to just give a wonderful, loving shout out to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being subscribers. I have noticed that Facebook Live and YouTube videos tend to be a little bit different. There are different expectations. So I just want to give you a loving reminder that this is a Facebook Live and that intentionally it's unscripted and unedited. This is just raw footage where we are talking about the topic, and the topic is what's important, as well as the interaction and the engagement. So with this being a Facebook Live, we are going to be chit-chatting, and you'll have the opportunity to ask questions as well. So thank you for being here. Before we dive in, I just have a couple of really quick announcements, and then we'll do some shout outs. Let me make sure my comments are coming through. Okay. I can see a few of you. Don't be shy. Okay, so a couple of quick announcements. Hi, Joe. How are you? Long time no talk. Exactly. So, okay. So a couple of quick announcements. If you are wanting to work with me more deeply, or you want to find out more about what exactly it is that I do, you can visit my website, which is www.psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. And there's free resources on there. There's also information on how I can work with you, how you can receive support. And I work with people along the whole spectrum, people who are having problems dealing with their spiritual sensitivities, empaths and sensitives, and people having minor unwanted spiritual situations in their lives, all the way to the more severe end of the spectrum with people who are experiencing major unwanted spiritual warfare. And like, we get into some really wild stuff on that end of it. So so I work with all of those people. So this topic is really important because I've had a lot of students over the years asking about this spiritual teacher, Doreen Virtue, and they're feeling confused and concerned and wanting to know my opinion. And back when I did the original video, I don't know, it was like 4 or 5 years ago. Back when I did that original video, it wasn't that I was trying to hold back. It was that I think I just wasn't ready to share, like I said, some of my more controversial opinions. And now I feel ready. Like, I've been working with so many clients and students over the years, and I see how much you all need to know about this. So I'm not going to hold back. Okay. Okay. Oh, one more announcement before we dive into Doreen Virtue. And if you don't know who she is, I'm going to start from square one and go over all the basics. And then we're going to go step by step into everything that happened to her and then my opinions about it. So one more announcement, big announcement. So it's December 2020 as we're doing this Facebook Live. And I wanted to give you all a heads up that if you are interested in joining Spiritual Empowerment Academy, that's my flagship program. That's the way to work with me. If you're interested in that, the price is going up on January 1st. So head on over to psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. Under the events tab, you'll find the academy. And I want you to just notice if you feel drawn to it or not. If you feel like it's not for you, listen to that. If you feel really drawn to it, listen to that. If you join before January 1st, then your lower price is locked in. You don't ever get a price increase. So that's a really cool perk. Okay, let's get into Doreen Virtue. And we don't have very many shout outs today because y'all are being really quiet, and that is okay. Okay, so as usual, I've got plenty of notes, and because there's so much to cover, and I don't want to leave anything out. So Doreen Virtue, I grabbed a couple of her old items. She was a world-renowned spiritual teacher and author. And I got rid of most of the books that I had of hers, but here's one that I still have, Angel Numbers 101 by Doreen Virtue. And here's an old deck. Again, I've gotten rid of most of her decks. She was very popular for having, she had so many Oracle card decks. She had, I don't know, she might have had more Oracle card decks than she had books. Somebody probably knows the official number on that, but like she was just pumping these out like crazy. And the thing is that they were very good for beginners. They were great for beginners because a lot of the Oracle cards would have the actual message on the card. So beginners could easily use those cards without having to have a mastery over the tarot system. A lot of the spiritual books that she put out were very beginner oriented, and she had books, a lot of books on angels, fairies, all sorts of information on the spiritual realm. And her approach was very, and I don't mean any insult by this at all. I'm not trying to insult anyone, but her approach was very soft and fluffy, and it was very intentional. That was what she was comfortable with. She wasn't comfortable with any of the darker stuff or talking about any of the shadow, going deeper, right? And she was very open about that even when she was a famous author. So, oh, hi Tina, good to see you. Haven't seen you around in a while. Hi Stephanie. So, you guys, if you have any questions or you have any thoughts on Doreen Virtue, please feel free to share. So we have an open sharing forum here. There's no right or wrong answers. And here I'm just sharing the information that I have and my personal and professional opinions. But I don't claim to be the be all end all of capital T truth. So, okay, so she was a world-renowned spiritual teacher and author. She used to travel all over the world and certify people as angel card readers so they could do tarot readings for clients and at psychic fairs and everything like that. So I didn't think to look up how long she was doing that work, but it was many years. And she was working with a publisher called Hay House. They are a very well-known, well-regarded New Age publishing company. And I say well-regarded publishing company because, like they're popular, they're well accepted. That doesn't mean that I think all of their books are 100% on the up and up. I think they have a lot of false light in their books, but that's just my opinion. Again, no insult intended, just here to share my thoughts and opinions. She was raised Christian Science and Unity Christian. So she was raised Christian, but not in the more standard versions of Christianity. So she was not raised as a fundamentalist. She was raised in the more the Christian outskirts. So Unity Church, Christian Science, etc. So she always called herself a Christian, but she was not a more traditional or fundamentalist Christian. Hi, Rochelle. Good to see you today. You guys feel free to share where you're joining from, and why did you feel drawn to watch this? Did you know that we were talking about Doreen Virtue today? Was that why you showed up here? Okay, so what happened was that she ended up disavowing all of her past work. She told told the public, please throw away my old books, throw away any oracle cards. They are demonic, they are evil. She then converted to Christianity. So naturally, hi Rochelle from Wisconsin, good to see you. So naturally, that was very confusing and upsetting for a lot of people. And now she speaks out regularly against New Age. She puts out videos regularly, and she has a following, but it's a different following now compared to before. And so naturally, this is confusing for people who hear her story. Maybe they see one of her videos, and then a lot of times it ends up initiating fear. I've noticed it will initiate fear for people because they'll think, well, gosh, am I doing something wrong? Because they see her as an authority, and they think, well, if she switched from one thing to the other, maybe I'm on the wrong track. Maybe, like, is there something I'm not seeing? And so it creates a lot of confusion. But the first thing that we need to remember is that no one is an authority over you. I'm not your authority. You can take my opinions and consider them, but I'm not your authority. Doreen Virtue is not your authority. You are your own authority. That's one of the, I think, roots to a lot of people getting confused and really upset, is that they were putting their authority onto other people. So that's something you want to keep in mind. Tina is saying, yes, I better grab my glasses. You guys, this is very funny. I finally bought old lady glasses. Let's see if I need to wear them so I can read your comments, because my eyesight has gotten really bad in the last 6 months. Tina is saying, yes, that's why I showed up. I have my own theory, and I wanted to... Oh, shoot. It's doing it again. It's not letting me scroll back. And I wanted to hear yours. Okay. Yeah. And... oh, my device has been real tricky. Somebody's here from New Jersey, and I can't see who it is. When I try to scroll back, it freaks out and goes back to the beginning. So I'm so sorry if I miss anybody's comment. And Jessica is saying hi. I think it's Tina who's saying she's joining from New Jersey, but I can't tell. I'm so sorry. You can always comment again. And this is my reminder to read your comments right away as soon as they post, so that they're right on my main screen and I don't have to scroll back, because, you know, Facebook is so weird and glitchy. Okay, so why is this topic relevant? Like, the first thing that I wrote down in my notes, like, about why is this relevant? I wrote down, well, who cares? Like, it's not really relevant. Like, and I'm not trying to downplay anybody's feelings, but I'm just looking at one side of it. Who the F cares? People can do as they please. Like, she can convert to worshiping the flying spaghetti monster for all I care. Have you heard of the flying spaghetti monster? There's an actual religion, but like, she can worship and say whatever she wants, and to me, I don't really care. That's her business. She has free will, and people can do as they please. So on that level, it's not relevant at all. Like, yeah, she's a public figure, but who cares? But let's come back and look at the other side of it. It is relevant because she is a public figure. She's responsible for what she puts out there, and her actions did create a really big ripple. People did and continue to really look up to her as a leader and as an authority. Okay, and so people, when this all happened back in 2017 was when she converted and started speaking out so vehemently against her past work. People felt very confused, and they still do. Like, I still run into people who express confusion, and they say, well, like, am I supposed to convert to Christianity too? Or am I not being Christian enough? And Jessica says, I've only heard of her via your email a few weeks back. Okay, so now you're going to hear all about it. And so now you'll be very well informed. A lot of people, I noticed way back when it happened in 2017, expressed feelings of betrayal because they had taken her, they had spent a lot of money on all of her content, and now she was saying that they should all throw it away. They had spent money on her certification programs. They were like, their work, for some people, their work was based on her work. Their certifications, their oracle card certifications and their spiritual certifications were through her. And so now her certifications were worthless. So people were feeling very upset, very betrayed. And we need to keep in mind that back then, now less so, because as Jessica pointed out, there are a lot more people who've never heard of her now, which I think is kind of a good thing. But back then, she was truly a foundational force for many, many spiritual seekers. And even though this happened a few years ago, there are still ripples. Okay? So, there's a couple of key points that I want to go over with all of us. The first is, in regard to a lot of people got very upset because they were using her oracle cards. Those were the main cards that they were using to do their readings for their friends or their clients. And they were getting so angry at Doreen Virtue that they were throwing her oracle decks out. And so the key point that I want to say about this is that Doreen Virtue is not this deck. She may have been one of the people that was involved in creating it, but she's not the deck. So if you still have one or more of her decks and it still resonates with you to use it, then go right ahead, because she is not the deck. Okay? She's on her own path now. You can claim whatever spiritual tools you happen to have. You can claim those as your own. Those are part of your energy now. Now, that said, I did use her cards. There were a few angel decks that I really liked, and I would use them when I wanted to utilize very soft energy for certain clients. And, but it was very interesting. So I was fine with using those decks until a year ago. I was pulling cards, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, the energy of this deck is so bad. It's weird. It actually felt demonic to me. And it didn't it wasn't that oracle cards are demonic. It was the connection to whatever's going on with her. It was like, okay, I was okay with using those decks for a while. And now I got a very clear signal that it's time to put those away. And so I only kept a couple of the decks just kind of for posterity or whatever. But I never use them for oracle readings anymore. Rochelle, what is her name again? It's Doreen Virtue. Doreen Virtue. Virtue. Tina, I feel like this whole thing with Doreen highlights the gap in awareness in the spiritual community when it comes to entities. Ooh, this gives me chills right now, Tina. I think you're going to find what I talk about today very interesting. I don't know that we'll be on exactly the same page, but I think you'll find it interesting because I agree with your comment. Thank you, Joe, for spelling out her name, and Jessica as well. That's the spelling, everybody, if you want to look at the comments right now. Okay, so key points. First of all, Doreen Virtue's oracle cards are not her. Any books, any tools that you got from her, any trainings, you can make those your own. If the energy doesn't feel right for you anymore, listen to that and don't use it anymore. Okay. Number 2, in my professional opinion, and again, I'm going to emphasize, no insult intended at all. The purpose of this video is not to disparage her or anyone. We're simply evaluating and sharing information. So I totally wish her the best. Like, I wish her the best. And you can tell I truly do. Like, I've got tears in my eyes. I hope that she gets help. I really do. I hope she finds her path, whatever it needs to be for her. That said, I do believe that her content, her material that she was putting out there was never highly informative. It was good for beginners, but I think based on just I just got this feeling from, especially looking at her videos at the end when she was making the changeover to what she's doing now, and some of the things that she was saying in defense of herself. All of that's been removed. She's removed it all. But it was very apparent to me that she was pumping out books and oracle cards not because she had knowledge about the particular topic, not because she had any knowledge, but because her publishers were pushing her to put out the next thing, put out the next thing, put out the next thing. Because it was evident in the way she was talking about how the publishing process was going. So, I mean, I don't think that she was an expert. She was saying that she was an angel expert. And then from some of the things that I was reading that were her words, that she was describing, how she was writing about certain things. Like, for example, she said she had never read the Bible. She had never read the Bible. All these years, she's an angel expert, and she had never read the Bible until she converted to fundamentalist Christianity. How can you call yourself an angel expert if you've never read the Bible? And that's one. So there's many sources that you can learn about angels, but that's just one example of why. If you followed her before and you saw her as an expert, in my opinion, I don't think she ever was an expert. I do very much believe that she was always very well-meaning and that she wanted to put out good content, but I don't think she was an expert. I think she was being significantly pushed by her publishers. And number 3 key point, she has every right to use her free will to do what she feels is right for her. So again, if she wants to worship the flying spaghetti monster, or if she wants to become whatever, or if she wants to speak out against anything, she has the right to do so. She has free will to practice whatever religion or beliefs. And I truly believe that. And I also have the right to speak about what I think too. So she does speak out very regularly against New Age and against any and all practices that fundamentalists consider New Age. And I specify that because there's a lot of things that are not really New Age, but it's all lumped in. She lumps it all in. Anything that's from ancient religions, Eastern religions, it's all lumped in there together. Chakras, like that's ancient knowledge, right? But it all gets lumped in by fundamentalist Christianity. It's all lumped in. Now, I will say one thing while it's on the top of my mind. So far we've talked about how she was a New Age author. Now she is a fundamentalist Christian. She vehemently speaks out against New Age, says that it's all evil, demonic, etc. You should not practice any of it at all. And that's a very extremist view. But I want to be very clear that I too see a lot of issues with New Age, and that is for another video. Like, I think maybe that will be one of the topics that I cover in the early part of next year, coming up in a few months. There definitely are some problematic aspects to New Age, but do I think that all of it is totally evil and demonic? No, not at all. A lot of the things that she disparages, I do on a regular basis. I use my psychic skills, my intuitive skills. I use spiritual tools. I use a pendulum. I use oracle cards. I use tarot cards. I use all of that. But there are limits, right? So I'm more in the middle, moderate. So I think that anything, whether it's New Age or any other practice, we just need to use discernment. So I'm definitely going to go deeper into that in another video for sure. Let's read Daniel's comment. I'm a bit late to the show. What happened to make her change her mind? Okay, so next we're going to go over the chain of events. I have a whole list of a chain of events that I'm going to share with you all so you can know what happened blow by blow. Tina says, I agree with you on the New Age. We need to find the balance for sure. Okay, so chain of events. What happened with Doreen Virtue? Now, for time's sake, I'm not going to go over every little tiny bit of minutia, but this is the basic time frame. So back in 2017, January, and I just looked it up. I just verified it. January 2017. Now, I'm going to plant a little bug here. 2017 was when she put a video out saying that she had a vision of Jesus and that she is now born again, fundamentalist. She was baptized in a fundamentalist church, and then she began to disavow all of her past work. I want to point out here, January 2017, okay, that was not long after the psychic attack that I went through that I talk about in my book. And that's going to click for you when I come further down in the chain of events of why that's relevant. Okay. So I found that very interesting that it was not exactly at the same time, but it was not long after. So before this happened, I think we need to also acknowledge that she had a fairly new husband. I don't know exactly how long they had been married. She's been married many times. This particular husband was much more fundamentalist Christian than her past husbands. And I was told by several sources that she that he was putting a lot of pressure on her. I don't know if that's true or not. So, but that is a little bit of context. Stephanie says, I wonder whether people being guided along tough life contracts and lessons, which seems negative, accounts for religious views. It's from the dark side and evil. Yeah, that could be. So January 2017, she puts out this video saying that she has had a vision of Jesus. It was very, very compelling for her. I think she did have an experience. I intuitively, in my core, I do believe that she had an experience that was very impactful for her. And I believe that she believed that she saw a vision of Jesus. I think that she questions that now, but she believes that she believed that she had had a vision of Jesus. And so next she began to disavow all of her past work. Oh, and Stephanie is saying that's interesting because her big holdbacks started in February of 2017. Yeah, so it is interesting because we can have certain times in Earth timeline when things are really ramped up a lot more with the dark forces. So that is a possibility. Okay, so then she, right after that, she began to disavow all of her past work. She asked for people to stop buying all of her merchandise. She stated that everything in the New Age is evil. And she became what I call like a standard fundamentalist Christian, which is, we do need to acknowledge there are all sorts of flavors of Christianity, and not all of them are this extreme, but that's the bandwagon that she jumped on. She was fired by Hay House, the publishing company, pretty soon after that. And I watched a video where she was talking about it, and she was genuinely very disappointed and surprised that they let her go. And I'm kind of amazed by that. Like, of course they let her go. Like, I think they kind of had no other choice. Like, because it was such an extreme thing that she did. And she was speaking against like all of their merchandise, like all of the other stuff that they were putting out there. She was like saying all New Age books are evil. All New Age content is evil. Well, of course they had to let her go. She lost many relationships. Many of her relationships were destroyed, and her life was turned upside down. Now, since I am not in her personal life and I was only able to watch her videos along the way and discern what she was sharing with the public, right? I don't know all of the behind the curtain details of exactly what was going on with her family and her other close relationships, but she had many people that she had published books, and there's a gnat flying around me, books and oracle cards and other materials with, people who were colleagues and friends, and everything fell apart with those relationships. She was telling people to throw their merchandise away. It was affecting them too. And she also had adult children that she had published materials with. And so there were definitely falling outs with a lot of people. And it's important to note here that many relationships were destroyed and her life was turned upside down for sure. Now, rhetorical question. Does Jesus cause people's lives to be turned upside down? And does Jesus initiate the destruction of all of your relationships? Like, is that something that Jesus would do? Does that sound like a Jesus action? That's food for thought. She had a ranch in Hawaii, and she left that ranch. She sold it. She and her husband let go of the ranch, there was actually a lot of, oh, poor me about the ranch. I was watching a lot of her videos around that time, and she was saying, oh, we just don't have any money. Well, I think, like, she had to have been like the top spiritual author, like maybe in the world. I don't know, but definitely in the United States. And something was definitely wrong with her money management. I got the sense that she must have had a very poor sense of money management. Maybe she actually made comments about, like, she felt like the publishers had taken advantage of her. It sounded to me like she never even read her contracts, and I'm not judging. Or maybe I am. I'm making an evaluation here. Like, it just sounds like she was not very discerning, and that's really unfortunate, because I think that's why she was putting out a lot of, oh, poor me videos when she was having to let go of the ranch in Hawaii. She was saying that they didn't have enough money and blah blah blah, and so she had to let it go. And then she started marketing and putting out materials for Christianity. And I'll hold that thought. I'm going to read Daniel's comment. If Doreen has natural psychic abilities, they won't just disappear because she's become a fundamentalist Christian. She will live with this internal conflict for a long time. Yeah. And I didn't mean to giggle over that, because I truly wish her well. I hope that she's able to find kind of a balanced ground, but it's really none of my, it's whatever healing process she goes through is really none of our business. But still, from human being to human being, I do hope that she finds some sort of balance and that she can begin to feel better, because I think this whole thing has just been, sorry guys, I've got a little gnat problem around here. I think that this whole thing has been a nightmare for her, and I think it's very, very, very sad. Very sad. Now, what's interesting is that right away when she converted to Christianity, she started putting out and marketing herself as an expert in Christianity. Now, she wouldn't have said that she was an expert, but you don't just brand new convert to something, and you're a brand new baby. You've just converted 5 seconds ago, and now you're writing a book, and I guess she wasn't getting any profits from the book, but she was earning income from her Christian content, some of the other things that she was doing, which does seem a bit questionable. Like the integrity there seems a bit questionable. Like, okay, you've thrown out all of your, like, thousands and thousands and thousands of your old customers. You're just like throwing up on all of them, right? And then you're going to a different market and trying to sell to them. That just seems questionable to me. Again, I don't know what's really going on behind the curtain there personally. But it definitely seems questionable as far as integrity is concerned. So some people have made very strong statements that they feel that her dropping New Age and going to Christianity was a business decision. It was her way of making money. It was a money-making ploy. I do think that there was some of that in the mix. I don't know if she was fully conscious of it at the time, but I think she rode that wave to go into a market that had more money. Because she actually said in one of her public interviews that New Age people don't have any money. It's the Christians that have a lot of money. Like, she actually said that in a public interview before she made the switch over. So there was something there somewhere in her consciousness. Okay, so yes, she may have had a very impactful experience, but I think there was some other agendas mixed up in there. Tina says, the whole issue with humanity is that we're always looking outside of ourselves for the expert when the expert is truly within. I agree so much with that. So much. Everybody's looking for a guru, a teacher, someone who will give them the answers. Now, I just want to say with compassion to everybody, I get it. Like, being on this planet sucks sometimes. It's really hard. And I have personally found many times I have just wished that there was someone like a mentor, an elder that I could go to who just had the answers, who would just hold my hand and tell me that everything's going to be okay. Like, I just have wanted that sometimes, because it's really hard being here. It really is. And it's okay to have a mentor, but we need to remember not to put our power into somebody else. And I think that was one of our really big lessons for those of you who were really into Doreen Virtue a few years ago. I think that was a big lesson for a lot of people. I think that was a big overall collective message, to not put your power into someone else. No one else has more knowledge or ability or authority over you. Okay, so then after that, she began putting out Christian videos. Oh, so over time, I'm going to correct myself here. After a couple of years, she began putting out videos and content where she was saying that she was questioning that vision that she had of Jesus. That original vision that she had in January 2017, she began to question it. And she was saying, well, maybe it wasn't Jesus. Maybe it was the devil. Maybe it was something else. And her views seemed to definitely waffle. She was doing a lot of waffling. And I think it was because there were a lot of fundamentalist Christians, because I did a bunch of research on, like, deeper research on this a couple of years ago for a private class that I taught. And as I went into the deeper research, I was finding fundamentalist Christians who were speaking out against her big time. And they were using theological reasoning to state that she did not have a vision of Jesus. It was clearly the devil because blah, 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 theological reasons. And so because of all of that pressure, she started to waffle with her story about whether she had a vision of Jesus or not. And all along, I have questioned whether she actually saw Jesus or not. And over the years, as I've seen all of this unfold, and I've continued to do my own work and work with my own clients and do my own truth seeking in other regards, and then revisiting her story, to me, the answers now are so crystal clear, even compared to when I did my first video on her a couple of years ago. Like, I'm 100% sure of my opinions now. Now, one thing that I noticed since her conversion is that in her videos, you don't have to be psychic to just observe her eyes, her body language, how different she looks now compared to before. Because before, I think she looked wholesome, happy. She did look a little fluffy, a little like not grounded. That's what I mean by fluffy in her past New Age photos. But now in recent years, since her conversion, I think she has looked very sad, sometimes angry, depressed, and again, no disrespect intended, but mentally unstable. That's my personal take. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a clinician who can diagnose that. But just as a human being watching her videos, Um, she looks like she's about to have a breakdown in a lot of them. Just watching her, which is another reason why I just feel so sad for her. I can only imagine how, like, this situation has just, like, it destroyed her life. And like, it just destroyed her whole foundation, destroyed her livelihood, her ranch that she loved so much, where she was fostering animals. She lost that. She lost family members, I'm sure. And it's just been a mess for her. In my opinion, Jesus doesn't do that to people. That's my opinion. I know the Bible has stories like the story of Job, where Job was tested. I know that's a thing, but when I hear her story, I'm like, that does not sound like Jesus, who turned her life upside down. That sounds like something else. And I'm going to tell you what I think it is. What I think really happened. This is our final section. And this is why we're really here. What I think really happened. So before I forget, I did do another video on this topic a couple years ago. If you're on my YouTube channel, the Psychic Protection Sanctuary YouTube channel, then you can go to the Psychic Protection playlist, and you'll find, if you scroll down, you'll find another video from a couple years ago. It has the name Doreen Virtue in the title. And I give some different information in there. There's some repeat information, but there's some different details in there. So you can go and watch that if you want to know more. Okay, so what I think really happened that I've never talked about publicly before, because this is pretty far out there, and I haven't heard anyone, I have not found anyone else who has this perspective. I think that she had an encounter with a jinn entity. And if you're not familiar with jinn, it's spelled D-J-I-N-N or J-I-N-N. And I also have a video on jinn in my playlist, so you can go and learn all about that. It's very detailed. And the jinn are a particular type of entity that they operate in a certain way. And this looks classic jinn. This is classic jinn. And I say this not just as someone who has had very jarring personal encounters with jinn. And that's one of the things that I talk about in my book, Darkness Disguised as Light. But after I went through my experience in 2016 that I explain in my book, even after that, I've had other personal encounters with jinn, and I've also had face-to-face encounters with jinn via my client work. Those entities they scare me more than demons. They are so bad. They're insidious. And I will go into some of the reasons why I see the parallels, but I invite you to go and watch that video about jinn. In the video where I describe the vengeful jinn, where I talk about them and all of their characteristics, I go into a lot of details that I haven't found anywhere else, so it's a little different than other stuff that's on there about that kind of entity. But a few key components here. Jinn are master shapeshifters. It is extremely common for them to take the form of an angel, of Jesus, of an animal, of spirit guides. And I've had these encounters myself personally. And I have had clients who've had these experiences. Okay. I've also seen jinn that have shapeshifted into being like gods and goddesses from the old pantheons. What else? Oh, this is really creepy. I had a personal experience. I think it was in 2018. No, I think it was in 2017. 2017, I was sitting in a Christian church and I had an encounter with a jinn in a Christian church. I was sitting there on the end of the pew. I was on the end seat. My friend was sitting to my right, and I'm just looking up at the altar. I'm watching and I'm listening, and all of a sudden something hit me on the right side of my head. Like it went boom on my temple, and it happened so fast, and it hurt. Something whacked me on the head, and I grabbed my head and I said, "Ow!" And I looked up from under my hand and I saw this jinn entity. And I'm clairvoyant, so I'm able to see maybe some things that not everybody can see. My friend didn't see it. I looked up though and I saw this jinn like clear as day. And it looked exactly like the thing that attacked me that I talk about in the book. But it was much bigger. It was literally so big that it covered the congregation. It was like a big cloud. But it was not a cloud. It was a plasma light energy. And when I looked up at it, I saw it. I knew that it was a jinn. And then I also immediately knew that it was pretending to be God, and that it was checking up on its followers. If I had not known better, if I hadn't already had personal encounters with jinn, I would have thought that I was clairvoyantly seeing God, that I had an encounter with God. Because how would you know? Some of my encounters that I had a few years after that with a really nasty jinn here in Tucson, that thing was so convincing. It was trying to be all sorts of things, and it actually has a lot of people fooled. Jinn are so convincing. So number one, they are shapeshifters, extremely convincing. Number two, they love to create chaos. So if they can, they will do everything they can to destroy a person's life, and by confusing them through deception. And that's exactly what happened to this person, Doreen Virtue. In some of Doreen's past videos and some of her past writings, again, she's removed a lot of that. So it's hard for you to go back and find what I'm talking about. But she talked about how at the time of when this vision happened, she was having a lot of paranormal activity in her home. So she's having a lot of paranormal activity, and then she has this vision of Jesus when she's in the church. Now that's still a sign of jinn. She thinks that the paranormal activity was happening because she had oracle cards and crystals, but she had paranormal activity because she had a jinn that was messing with her. Like, the worst paranormal activity I've ever had, me personally, was when I went to a spiritual teacher, a so-called spiritual teacher, who said she was working with angels. And then after I came in contact with her, and her angels were not angels, it was a jinn that was working with her. So she was being completely fooled. That thing hopped onto me and was harassing me. I could see what it was. Well, after a while, I figured out what it was. if you've read my book, you know how that chain of events went. But the lights were flashing. The thing attacked me when I was sleeping. So there was crazy paranormal stuff going on in my house. I took a video for my students. I was doing a tutorial for them. The entity showed, the jinn showed up like behind my shoulder, in the middle of the air. It showed up. I was in a different place. It didn't have a chair behind me. And so here Doreen Virtue is saying that she's had all this paranormal stuff in her house, and then she has a vision of Jesus. So to me, that's also another indication. Like if that was the only indication, I don't think that alone indicates that she had a jinn. But I think the fact that this vision, this so-called vision of Jesus that she had, initiated so much chaos in her life and rippled out and affected so many other people. That's classic jinn. That's classic jinn. And the fact that years later, she's like, I'm not sure, maybe it wasn't Jesus. Like even she has a feeling like something wasn't right about it. Okay. So her whole life fell apart. And again, what I said before, Jesus does not destroy lives like that, but jinn do. That is their main MO. They will destroy someone's life if they can. Okay, so the last thing that I'll talk about is more general, and it's about how I've seen a pattern of people in spiritual leadership being targeted in various ways by the dark forces, and specifically targeted by jinn entities as a way to initiate a ripple of chaos and confusion to impact the masses of spiritual seekers. So whether that's a false light entity, a jinn specifically, connecting to a spiritual teacher who then believes that she's channeling messages from the Pleiadians and she's leading all these groups of people and has this big, huge following, or she or he. I keep saying she, but it could be a he. And then, so everybody's getting hooked in to that false light matrix. Or it could be the opposite, where all of this disruption is caused, as in the story of Doreen Virtue, where a false light entity appears to her, and then causing all sorts of confusion and chaos that is still rippling out into the world today. There are still people who see her videos and feel very confused and think that maybe they are experiencing psychic attack because they're not Christian enough, because that's what she's saying. And that couldn't be further from the truth. So that's my 2 cents on it. I'm a questioner. I question even my own experiences. And so I want to emphasize, I am not one of those people that I had an experience with something, and so I think everything is that experience. I see people doing that. That's not what I'm doing at all. I did have had experiences, very scary experiences with jinn, but I don't assume that everything going on out there is jinn. I've helped clients who've had a whole variety of different kinds of things that are not related to jinn at all. That said, in my professional opinion, based on all of the encounters that I've had with jinn and the specific patterns that I see about how they operate, I very much believe that she had a jinn encounter that catapulted her into the whole shitstorm that ensued. And it's very, very, very unfortunate. And if you don't know what's happening, you just don't know. Like my first encounter that I talk about here in the book, I was very confused. Like I had no idea. It took me about 6 weeks to figure out what was going on. And so how would how would someone know? If you don't know that there are those kinds of entities out there, how would you know? How would you even suspect? I think it would be much more common for someone to think that they actually did see Jesus. So her response, I think, to give her credit, like her response, I think seems normal. Like that's a normal response. If with the information that she had, to think that she saw a vision of Jesus. It totally makes sense to me. So now there's this whole web, and all of these negative ripples that have gone out. And what better person to target? What better person could the dark forces target than the top spiritual author in the world? Or at the time, she was. I don't know if she was the top in the world, but she was up there. Like, what better person to target than her? Okay, and I think there was an overall agenda, not just to target her personally, but the role that she was in. I think that was very intentional to cause the most chaos and confusion, and that's the point. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Because I'm going to hop off in just a minute. I have a Zoom discussion group tonight where we are talking about various aspects of psychic attack. Tina has a comment. That makes sense, Maya, and aligns with my feelings as well. And that's good. I'm glad that you were here to share. Daniel says, emotional highs and crashing lows, reminiscent of a dark side of Cupid template, only with masses of people following a spiritual guru like Doreen and suddenly being let down, causing mass confusion and damaged relationships. Plenty of food there for dark entities, for sure. Yep. And Daniel mentions dark side of Cupid. That relates to Eve Lorgan and her books on the love bite and how love relationships can be manipulated by dark forces. She has a lot to say about this. I have a video on it too. I have a very similar perspective, but from kind of a different angle. But our opinions, I think, really align. There's a video in the Psychic Protection playlist about love, about hijacked love relationships. Tina says, chaos and confusion is what they do best. Yep, that's for sure. That's for sure. So the more I firmly believe, the more that you know about how this kind of stuff operates, the more protected you are. So you can learn all the different ways to protect your aura and to ground and blah, blah, blah. All of that is important. That's another piece over here. A very important piece, though, is to understand exactly how these dark forces work, what kinds of entities are out there, all of the tactics, so that when something starts to ramp up or is trying to ramp up, then you can identify it and you go, oh, I see what this is. This is XYZ. So you can cut yourself off from it, ignore it, or do whatever clearing based on whatever it is that you're dealing with. So the more knowledge that you have, the better. So thank you for being here and expanding your knowledge. And I hope you will get out there in the world, in the YouTube world, Facebook world, online, in person, however, books, learn as much as you can, evaluate all of it, and then bring it back to your own inner knowing, your own core. You've got to get as grounded as you can. In our general mainstream climate and the New Age and the spiritual world in general, we are taught from a young age to look towards the authority figures for the answers. Like that's been ingrained into us from the beginning. So now's your opportunity to switch that and see yourself as the authority gather the information, be an open-minded questioner, question everything, even your own thoughts and beliefs, and really connect with your inner core so you can find your own answers. Tina says, yes, this is so important, and thank you for sharing your wisdom and experiences. And Tina, thank you for the work that you're doing as well. One more final announcement is that, just a reminder that if you've been thinking about joining Spiritual Empowerment Academy, the price is going up in 2022, so don't hold off. It does require an application process because we're very picky about who's allowed in there. And what that means is that the people in the group are amazing. Amazing. I mean, seriously, we have the most amazing group. They are just so supportive and wonderful, and I love them so much. Rochelle says, it didn't just affect her, but everyone she worked with. Yes, and all of her readers and customers and students. Tina says, I just remembered 2017, I was targeted by a dark side of Cupid type relationship. Yeah, I think things were really ramped up around that time, 2016, 2017. I think a lot of people were being targeted big time. So if you are wanting to work with me, you can go to the website, psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. And then also a reminder that every month in this Facebook group, we have a Facebook Live, and it's on a very steady schedule. We always have it the first Monday of the month, and it is at 6 p.m. Central, and you can adjust for your time zone accordingly. And yeah, I'm already planning my topics for the next few months. And I already mentioned one of the topics earlier. If you missed it, you can go back and watch from the beginning. I think we are all done. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much. Have a beautiful holiday season and a wonderful new year. See you all on the flip side. Bye. Tina says, thank you, Maya. Have a great night. Thanks, everybody. All my love.